and welcome to Mimi's Acorn. Before we get started on this, my first video out for the public as Mimi's Acorn, I just want to get started by saying thank you to everybody that supported me. Also in the video, you will see, I'd like to give a shout out to my old General Electric oven, wall oven, that's older than I am. Even though the clock is wonky and it's had the heating elements replaced twice, it's still up and kicking, and they just don't make them like they used to. Although we did 3 projects in the kitchen this month, the spice rack over the cooktop and the Lazy Susans in the upper and lower cabinets of the kitchen, what we'll be focusing on today is going to be the Giani Counter Resurfacing Kit. It was ordered in Bombay Black from Amazon, and I also ordered an extra primer and an extra glitter top coat because I knew I was going to be doing a lot of surfaces, and it does come with plenty of extra colors. Whatever your accent colors are that these kits come with, there is more than enough to do twice the amount of surfaces that you would need it for, but you can adjust how much you use of each one of those colors. You'll also see in the video where the original countertops were white and that they had actually been resurfaced in the past. I had ordered the same kit, though slightly different, just as good, from Giani about 7 or 8 years ago and had redone those countertops. They looked great, but the reason the surface failed was just due to neglect. They weren't well taken care of. The grease wasn't cleaned up a lot. We had a lot of people in the household, and it was almost impossible to keep up with it at the time. From what I've read and from what I've seen, the top coats seem to be much more durable now, and we'll see how that goes. And even for the price, if it lasted that long, to me, that's still a benefit. I hated the old countertops. They were actually ugly. They were yellow or maybe that goldenrod color, and I sanded them down to where they were white. So that changed it somewhat. But in the future, we're looking to doing more of the kitchen and maybe making the cabinets white, countertops black. I think everything will look great that way. And again, welcome to the channel. Let's get right into it. So some things that you're going to need to complete this project, you got to start out with a decent amount of light, of course. You're going to need SOS or Brillo pads just to clear and scratch up that surface on the original countertops. Painter's tape, you're going to need at least 2 paint trays for your primer and for your top coat, and paper plates, and that'll be for sponging on colors. That'll be included in your instructions and show you how to do that. I would also recommend gloves. Any type of gloves, mostly disposable gloves that you can use because you're going to get it all over you when you smudge paint. So a step stool is helpful as well. Just to reach the back. So I have a corner counter, and it was very difficult to reach all the way back there. And even using a step stool, it slid on the tile. So I would definitely recommend something where you could try and reach back to those areas if you're not tall enough. Pencil and artist brush are handy for blending, or if you want to create any kind of custom looks or artistry to make it look just like granite or whatever surface you're trying to recreate with these kits. You will need a scraper to remove any kind of caulking or silicone that's around a cooktop or around your backsplash, around your sink, because that absolutely needs to be removed before you start. You'll also need paper towels for cleanup, or just have a wet towel handy for cleanup for any drips. And also, if needed, possibly an orbital sander or a sanding block. My kit recommended 300 grit sandpaper if you needed to fill in anything with wood putty and try to sand that out. I used an orbital sander because one countertop had loose material from the old resurfacing kit that needed removed, and the other countertop was actually wood. So both of those, I started with a 60 grit with the orbital sander and then used 120 grit, and everything turned out fine for that. And the primers went on smooth after that. So absolute essentials that you're going to need to do for this project, 100% is all the prep work. In the instructions, it's laid out very clearly. Read through that before you even start. As a lot of the kits now say, sanding is optional. Like I said, I had to do it due to filling in gouges that were in the wood or that loose material off of the countertop. But make sure that you get it as clean as you possibly can. Get all of the silicone or caulk around your sink and your stove top, your backsplash. Get all of that completely cleaned up. Um, Make sure you sand any of your filler, scour the surfaces with the Brillo pad, and wipe up any dust. And then you need to rinse. If you use an SOS or a scouring pad, you need to rinse that at least twice to get everything off of there. Dry it, let it completely air dry. I actually finished ours with rubbing alcohol, just because I'm used to doing nails. You got to prep everything well for it to work right, for everything to stick. So I did finish my prepping with rubbing alcohol. And again, it is absolutely essential that you complete all of the prep steps. If you don't, even though the kits aren't expensive, it's a complete waste of money. If you don't do all of the prep and have everything ready, everything dry, everything completely clean, taped off before you start, you're going to, one, definitely make a mess, but it's going to be a mess that's going to be ruined soon. It won't actually work. It won't actually stick. And it may even just peel off as soon as it cures. So make sure you get all of the prep steps done. Follow your instructions that came with your kit exactly. So just a few extra notes before we start into the actual video of the project. My instructions did say that you needed 2 layers of the glitter top coat. I know in the past, the instructions stated to use 1 layer, and that's going to be dependent upon your kit. It did say to use a max of 3 layers. And when I got to the actual island, I did do 3 layers on that because I expected it to go through quite a bit of use. So I wanted to make sure that that was actually extra durable at the time. Also, again, I did mention the tape. Make sure you have everything taped off before you start. You don't want to have any paint get anywhere that you don't want it. But the nice thing is that it's acrylic and it will clean up with water. So keep a wet cloth around or a wet paper towel. You can wipe it up immediately as soon as it happens, especially with the primer. It's it's fairly easy to clean. Its job is just to stick to that surface and bond with the rest of it. So it's not particularly hard to get it off of there even after it dries. So that's something you might be able to do, but you won't know that it's there until you take the tape off if it's seeped under your tape. So anything that you see, then go ahead and remove that prior to it drying. And finally, consider a drop cloth to protect your lower cabinets and your floor. Like I said, this product does clean up easily when you catch it wet, but it doesn't mean that you're actually going to catch every drip. If it falls onto tile or some laminate flooring, that won't be a big deal. You'll be able to wipe that up. I do believe if the top coat, even though it is acrylic, all of this is so much easier to clean up while it's still wet. So consider the drop cloth. So next is the original project, photo and videos with commentary. And when that's all finished, I'll see you back here for some closing remarks. So we're starting off with some photos that are from around 2013 or 2014. These are the original countertops in the kitchen. It does have custom cabinets from 1973. Also, this is where we've started. I was sanding down the countertops from the previous refinishing, getting ready to tape everything off and start to resurface that area. This is where the primer's been laid down. Partway through this, I decided I was going to go ahead and do that trim, so I ended up taping off around that and painting that trim as well. So I did get it to match up. It is the same kit that I bought several years ago to do the countertops with, and I did get it to match up. The kits are the exact same name, but they are slightly different now. These are Lazy Susans that I would say replaced. When we moved in here, there was some hardware left from old Lazy Susans that used to be in the corner cabinets, but they were no longer there, either through being broken or just removed for some reason. So I was able to measure and replace the hardware and put new Lazy Susans in there and custom buy them to fit. So everything's much more organized there. We're glad to have that space. This spice rack was just recently ordered. If you noticed in the previous pictures, it wasn't there, but that's been a new addition. We've moved on to the island, and that's where I've got it taped off and have the black primer laid down. So the rest of the video is going to show how the actual process went for the resurfacing of the rest of the countertop. The rest of the countertop is a laminate, and it is old, original from the addition to the house in 1973. This is a counter that we actually purchased from a business a few years ago. So the first step after you let that primer dry is to go in. The first color you start with is the white, and this is the Bombay Black kit from Giani. And it is basically just sponge painting, so you don't have to watch all of that. I did this in a time lapse to make it much faster. Personally, I enjoy watching a time lapse, but after seeing how long it took even through the time lapse, that's when I realized exactly how much time I had spent on this and why I'm sore and why my hands hurt. It was kind of difficult reaching all the way back underneath there. And this was never meant to be kitchen furniture. This was actually a retail counter, but we were able to get it back to our house when we closed our business and make it an island/bar for our kitchen. This particular video is just to show you the difference. The white is a mica white. It's has some flecks in it, just to try and show you the gradient and the differences between that white. Now that white, when it does dry and after it gets a clear coat, it actually turns silver. It's no longer white. But as you can see, things are starting to blend in with the rest. So the next color clearly is black that you would sponge over top of the white. You don't do it as heavy. That first color is the one that you put on the heaviest. So they give you 3 colors. The first one you put on the heaviest, the second one you do not quite as heavy, and then the third one you do even less. But this is all, of course, up to your taste as well. I feel like I got plenty of black on there. If you don't get, the color doesn't seem as rich and as deep if you don't get plenty of that black. Now the original kits, which you won't be able to see here, this is from the newer kit, but on the backsplash of this particular countertop has the old kit on it. And it came with a mica black instead of just a gloss black. And they've changed the kits to where now the top coat has flecks or glitter in it instead of just being a clear, shiny top coat. So they've replaced those flecks in the black with what would show up through the top coat. I do actually like it quite a bit this way, but once you get that third color on there, it really adds a lot of depth. So here we go with the bronze. Like I said, this is going to be even lighter. And again, just sponge paint it on however much you want or however little you want. I start by putting just spots here and there. And then when you're done, you just kind of take a step back. You look at it, you decide, Do I like it? Does it need more? Does it need to look like, does it need something extra to look natural? And I did this a little different than I did my countertops, because after I stood back and looked at it, I felt like it needed more of the bronze to look like the granite had veins in it. So you see some of that start to appear here. You can see some small lines. And here clearly all of that paint is still wet. I did let the black dry a little bit before I came in with the bronze, but it does blend together well. You end up with a lot of black on your bronze while you're sponge painting it. But like I said, just putting the bronze on it adds depth, but when it gets mixed in with the black a little, it makes it look that much more natural. Now when it's wet and you zoom in, not so much so. But once it's dry, and then when you see it with the top coat, it's a big improvement. So I forgot to actually take video of applying the top coat, but this is just some touch-up work that we needed to do around the cooktop. When the tape was taken off of it, it took some of it off. So around the sink and the cooktop, we redid it. This does have the top coat just applied. It looks kind of a milky blue when you first apply it, so it leaves a haze. But that's really helpful, especially since a lot of these paints are glossy or have mica in them. If it weren't that color, if it didn't have that milky haze to it, it would be really difficult to gauge how much you got on there, if you got it thick enough. And ideally, you should be able to do this in one coat. It's nice to have extra and do two. On the island, I did do two, in some spots, 3 coats of this glitter top coat, just to make sure it would fill in some of the dents and gouges, because this is actually wood. This is a wooden countertop. So here we go with taking the tape off. I'm going to just let this play so you can enjoy the ASMR. Now that was so satisfying. So here we are, just coming into the kitchen after the top coat is starting to dry. Taking the tape off was an hour after applying, so you don't wait for it to completely dry, but at this point it's no longer tacky. It will take 48 hours for it to set well enough to actually use the countertop, or longer, because like I said, some of that does have 3 coats of clear coat on it. As far as using it fully, 2 full weeks before you actually put any heavy appliances on it or anything like that. These resurfacing kits, they are durable if you take care of them. You can't use any harsh cleaners. You can't use them as a cutting board. You should never use your countertop as a cutting board anyway. And also, you need to keep them grease free. So, anywhere that it's going to come in contact with food, these are all food safe products, of course, but if it is going to come in contact, then it needs to be cleaned up immediately if there's any grease. This video is just to show how much reflectivity you actually get from that glitter top coat. Of course, that's zoomed in quite a bit. But that's one of the things that I really like about even how they change the kits, is where you get that sparkle all over. But if you see it from far away like this, it's not actually glittery, it's not glowing, it's not bright, it doesn't look tacky. So hopefully at some point we want to take all these cabinets, even though they are nice cabinets, they are from 1973, and get those painted white and redo the island as well. So hope you enjoy. So in closing, make sure to follow all the care and maintenance instructions that come with your kit. No knives, metal utensils, sharp objects, anything like that. Don't use those on the countertop. Try not to touch it at all with anything for the first 48 hours. No hot pans. Always use a hot pad or a trivet. I don't recommend using a trivet until after the 2 weeks because they can be sharp on the bottom. And keep it clean. Mild soap and water. Don't use any solvents, any harsh cleaners, or disinfecting wipes. It's a possibility when I resurfaced my counter before that part of it actually failing and breaking down might have been the Clorox wipes. I did use them a lot back then, so I'm not sure if that contributed to that, but I do know that I did use them a lot. It also took a fair amount of damage from family members as well, so that's a possibility. And it was all those regular things: grease not getting cleaned up, people using knives, and not using an actual cutting board. Also, some additional notes: standing water on this clear coat, it'll leave a foggy mark. So when you first apply it, it's kind of got that foggy blue marked or color to it. And it almost resembles a water ring on furniture. It will, if you leave a wet glass sitting on the countertop, it will leave a ring. But being acrylic and being water-based, it will dry. And when it fully dries, that mark will be gone. But that'll be something that'll help you to understand, or maybe keep ahead of it, that you see that mark, it is going to go away, but it might help you along with the process of, hey, try to make sure that that's dry, try to keep up with it. The top coat could show signs of wear just by regular wear and tear, regular everyday use, but this is something that you can correct. You can keep ahead of that and on top of that and order just top coat all alone. All you would need to do, if you see any noticeable signs of wear and tear, if you see if it's got some cut marks in it, try to do this before you see any color chipping or flaking or losing any of the actual finish. But if you see that it looks dull, go ahead and get some 300 grit sandpaper. I would recommend, again, an orbital sander. Use it very lightly, but you can use a sanding block. Wipe that down a couple of times with a damp cloth and let it completely dry, and you can resurface it. You can recover it with another coat or even 2 of the top coat just to renew the finish. So that concludes everything. I appreciate that you watched the video clear to this point. Thanks for supporting me. This is kind of a new endeavor on my part. So if you like it, let me know. And also, if you've had any experience with these Giani counter resurfacing kits, or even the cabinet kits, because that's what I'm looking into doing next, is finding maybe not necessarily the Giani brand, but another brand. If you've got any experience with those, definitely drop me a note in the comments. Let me know. we'll discuss it. Thanks again.